Hi, everyone. I'm JD Talasic, Director of Cultural Programs at the National Academy of Sciences. I'm so glad to have our community back together for another salon from the Creative Gulf Network. For those of you who have been here for a while, you know what we're about. Those of you who might be new, we started this about 3 years ago now, Brandon, and I kind of started working with the Gulf Research Program. The Gulf Research Program came to us and was very interested in artists that were working down in the region, but really didn't know or needed some inspiration on how to interact and how to get scientists and artists to interact. And I talked to Brandon, and Brandon knew some people, and I knew some people, and then eventually we created this Gulf Network, which has now grown to the list is probably over 100. So of which we don't always get everybody at every salon, but we're glad you're here when you're here, and it's been a really enjoyable trip. We have manifested a couple of in-person meetings. The first one a couple of years ago, actually last year. Was in Tampa, Florida, and earlier this year in Galveston. And so we're still dreaming together to see when we might meet up next. So like we do, and let me, since I did not write out a formal agenda, I will tell you how this is going to go down, or at least this is the outline, and then you'll tell us how this is actually going to go down. So I'll hand this over to Brandon, who will introduce our wonderful provocateur for this morning. Then we'll hear about Tammy's work. And then we'll just open it up to a discussion. And this is always a lively group with responses and questions. And then we'll morph into the ability for new people who've not been here before to introduce themselves and their work, and also for our longtime members to share new projects. And the discussion always goes on from there. So we'll be here for about an hour and a half, and hope you can stay with us. I am putting into the chat a link to our video archive on YouTube. This is not open to the public, but anybody who has a link can find it. So we're not necessarily public, but we're not necessarily restrictive either. So with no further ado, I'm going to turn this over to the magnificent crawdaddy of them all, Brandon Ballinger.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, JD. Thank you, Tammy, for being here and presenting today, and everybody else that's joining us. I got to meet Tammy. When was it? I think it was around 5 years ago, the first time you came over with Monique Verdun. And one of the things that struck me immediately is your knowledge and passion for plants, and how you kept finding things in the field at our spot in Louisiana at our Atelier de la Nature, and knowing about their medicinal qualities. And I thought that was fantastic. That, and your son and our son running around geeking out with drones. That was the other thing that was a lot of fun that I remember from that day. So we're very excited to have you here today and learn from you and hear what you have to present. And I'm just going to read maybe not your entire bio, but some of it. And so Dr. Tammy Greer is part of the United Home and Nation. She's a faculty member in the School of Psychology and the director of the Southern Miss Center for American Indian Research and Studies. She's a faculty advisor to the Golden Eagles Intertribal Society, a Native-focused student group who works with the center to host a yearly powwow, Native Ways School Days, and other Native-focused events on campus. In 2005, Dr. Greer, along with other tribal folks from Southern Mississippi faculty, built a 1,000-square-foot native plant forest garden on the Southern Miss campus. The garden, in the shape of a medicine wheel, nurtures hundreds of plants that Southeastern tribes used and still use for food and drink, building materials, weapons, dyes, clothing, and medicine. With the help of those garden plants, Dr. Greer is bringing back aspects of southeastern native material culture that have been sleeping, including native plant dyes, cordage, and pigments. She gives dye and pigment workshops across the Southeast and has demonstrated at numerous tribal events and the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. Dr. Greer is a member of the Wecan group, the Okla Hina Ikhish Hola, People of the Sacred Medicine Wheel, a group of indigenous folks who are building gardens and food forests along historical southeastern trade routes to address food insecurity. And maybe I'll stop there and turn it over to you for your presentation. And once again, very happy that you're here.
Okay. I think I'm right here. Wait a minute. Like that? Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see. I'm going to move that up. Okay. Okay, I want to thank you for spending time. Can you see the, yeah, you can see it, huh? I want to thank you for spending time with me today and for inviting me to this event. And I want to start in the beginning. So I want for you to know what the people of this place know and say about their own origin here in the Southeast. So there are multiple stories, with one of them being that we are star people, actually coming from the Pleiades star cluster near Orion, and another having the Muskogee people, Muskogee speaking people. So that's, you know, all the tribes, most of the tribes in the Southeast, not all of them, but emerging from a cave at this place right here in Mississippi, Naniwaya. And then another one, they migrated from the west to Naniwaya. So this cave and mound complex right here figure prominently in the stories of the Southeast and stories of the Southeastern people. The indigenous people of this area were prolific mound builders. They found, the explorers and the Europeans found hundreds of mounds, with a lot of singular mounds, but also a lot of mound complexes. The mounds were used for various purposes, like ceremonial grounds and elevated homes near water, of course. And some served as burial grounds. And many of them were located, like you see here in Louisiana, along the river. These mounds, let's see, these mounds were constructed in such a way that they've lasted for thousands of years. In the case of the Louisiana LSU campus mounds, they say over there that those mounds are 10,000 years old. They were oriented towards the sunset or sunrise during the summer and winter solstices, or towards previous settlements, or some were oriented in the cardinal directions. Some were arranged, some of the mound complexes were arranged to resemble the Pleiades star cluster. It was like, here, you came from these stars, and now look, here's the way home, back home. And these mound building people were connected by trade networks all over the North America, but also trade networks that went down into Mexico and into South America. So all of the Americas were connected by trade networks, including these Southeastern people, my ancestors. Let's get it to change. I don't know what's wrong with it. Let's see, hang on. There we go. In and around these mound complexes were hundreds of plants. They were purposefully planted, wild growing, wild tended, and used by our relatives for food and drink, building materials and tools, weapons and dyes, games, pigments, cordage for medicine. And also we had ceremonial plants. Most of these were used in putting medicine people in connection with other worlds, really anybody, and people who were suffering a tremendous amount, mental suffering, putting them in connection with the other world, or the world that you can't see, sort of to straighten them out. We had names for these plants. We named them in our own languages. And a lot of this knowledge remains fully awake. So this is Zula right here. She's a member of the Mississippi Band Choctaw Indians, and she's right here peeling swamp cane. We still play stickball. We still social dance. We still cook outside a fair amount, especially for like big events like funerals, weddings, things like that. Cooking outside is huge. We still know how to build palmetto huts. We still know how to make Spanish moss dolls, stuffed seats, stuffed mattresses, the uses of Spanish moss. We know how to make, this is a guy making fishing nets. And being down there in a swamp, we know how to make above ground ovens. This is a oven made out of clay, mud, and moss. And what's holding that frame is willow. And in the meanwhile, we've lost a lot. We call it going to sleep. A lot of our traditions have gone to sleep. Some of our traditional knowledge has gone to sleep. The elders were telling me before I built the garden that they had forgotten the names of their plants in the original languages, and they had forgotten who these plants are and what are their gifts. So over here, we have a longleaf pine basket, a beautiful Kashada longleaf pine basket. But that flower on that basket is Chinese raffia, and the color is Rit dye from Walmart. And right there, we know how to harvest willow. We can get out there with a sugarcane knife and harvest willow. We know how to make the frame for the palmetto hut, and you make it by tying the tops of the willow together like that so that it makes a circle, you know, when you get them all together, except that if we run out of cord, we have to go to the Dollar General and shut the whole process down until we find some cord. We know how to make these huts with the palmetto, but we also forgot that the palmetto roots are used for juice to wash your eyes when your eyes are irritated. And there's a decoction of the root that's used for high blood pressure and kidneys and dizziness and as a stimulant. So we've forgotten a lot. And that's what I was thinking about when we started this garden. I had that in mind. Our goal was to wake up some of these traditions. And I realized that we needed to remember, in order to stay in relationship with the natural world that's around us. And what we do right now is mostly try to dominate. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing people who, and our culture of trying to dominate the natural world. It's like, if it's in the way, cut it down. Not, let's figure out how I can live my life and they can live their lives, and we can both prosper in that way. So these plants in our teachings are brothers and sisters to us. And they're not only brothers and sisters, they're elder brothers and sisters. They've been here longer. They've survived longer. They may survive longer than we ever will. We rely on them. They don't rely on us for most of what they do. We chose the shape of a medicine wheel because it represents a circle, which is a sacred shape in Native country. And also it corresponds to our 4 directions teaching. So there are 4 directions. You can see 4 paths in this medicine wheel, and it corresponds to those teachings, the 4 directions teachings. And I'm going to say this, but if you tell anybody, I'm going to deny it. But we were having a disability audit on campus, and we had had a native plant conference before that, and there was a guy that was real knowledgeable about native plants who came to the conference, but he had to stay on the sidewalk because the garden paths were rocky and he was in a wheelchair. And so when we had a disability audit on campus, I told one of the Native kids I said, you know, the garden's not disability accessible. And this kid was a Native, but also he was legally blind. And so he beelined it over to the Office of Disability, and they called me that day or the next day, and they said, Tammy, we need to pave the paths. And I was like, okay. And they wanted to go from one sidewalk to the next, but I told them that, you know, the garden is a destination. It's not I-59 or I-10. It's not a way through, it's a destination. And so we came up with this design and they paved our paths. And then we got somebody to donate, B&B Concrete, I think, donated concrete colors so that we could color them in the color of the directions. And then for a very long time, you see how she grew, right? She like, this is her terrible 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, like when she's, you know, a snot-nosed kid just busting out at the seams. My statistics students helped me with the garden. I would give them like extra credit points, like 2 extra credit points. And then my director at some point, after I did this for years and years, she's like, yeah, Tammy, that's not statistics. You can't use the stat kids for it. And I'm like, you don't even know how much they get out of this. They get more out of this than they get out of my stat class. And also we're out there and I'm just a regular person digging in the dirt, and they're asking me questions and we're talking about things. It was so beneficial to them, but you know, we don't always see that, you know, that's another domination paradigm that's going on right there. And then, so here's how she looks pretty much today. This is her in the middle of campus. And the really cool thing is I know she's doing her work as a forest garden because a hawk actually killed a rabbit in there. And there was fur all over the place and yeah, in the garden. So they're using it. The animals are using it as well. I decided that as part of what we would do, what we were doing, since we were growing these plants and people did not know these plants and they did not recognize these plants. They even thought some of them were dangerous, like sumac, the red-berried sumac, which is not dangerous. You can eat the berries, you can make tea out of it or lemonade, but they didn't, like this beautyberry, you can eat those beautyberries. They didn't understand these plants. And so I thought I'm going to make these banners and then I'll take them everywhere I go. And I go a lot of places. We'll provide historical information and contemporary science. So I look up the latest science on the plant, on its medicinal values, or like in beautyberry, on its, you know, ability to get rid of insects or to, you know, it's got chemicals in it that they emit that insects don't want to bother you. And so I look all that up and put that on the banners so that people can see a plant that's in their yard and then come to know it better and maybe protect it better as well. And I try to speak to what I've learned from these plants too, because I tend that garden and I'm out there with them all the time. So these are rack cards, kind of like, I call them bookmarks, but they're rack cards. And so I talk about sumac, but then I talk about sumac's ability to bind dye, because otherwise dye or cloth resists dye, and sumac attaches to the cloth and opens the cloth and makes it less resistant to the dye, which is exactly what happens with me as a native going into native communities. I make them less resistant to whatever it is, the teaching, or whatever it is, the science, or whatever it is, the health work that's being done, because I'm native and I can go into that community and be the mordant between those two communities. Those communities don't open up so easily, just like cloth doesn't open up so easily. And we do use these garden plants for dye. We're remembering our dye culture. This is pokeweed and black walnut and sumac and goldenrod. And I harvest from the garden, but I'll harvest anywhere. I mean, I'll go, this is the back of a shopping center in Hattiesburg, and that just comes out there naturally, and I just go out there naturally and take it for my dye plants. And that weed right there, goldenrod, makes this beautiful yellow dye. We make all these colors. I get black walnut from North Mississippi. My friend has a black walnut tree. The pokeweed grows in my yard. The goldenrod grows in the garden and all over the place. Dockroot grows everywhere. There it is, laying outside, all lined up for you. It's beautiful. I mean, just beautiful. Look at that, like unimaginably beautiful colors coming out of the earth, coming out of these plants. This is what I call the many faces of walnut. These are all dyed with walnut, different concentrations and all. I'm making a banner right now about southeastern dye plants and minerals, and I'm going to call it Yakni Achokma Okla Achokma, meaning healthy land, healthy people, because the one goes with the other, the healthy land and the healthy people. It needs to be both of us that are healthy. And I go and I give presentations in places like Jazz Fest. I think I've been there maybe 4 or 5 years. They keep asking me back, and people love from all of what I've done. What they love the most is that I make pigment out of these plants, pigments, and they love to come and paint with me during Jazz Fest. It's like they say it's like a meditation. So I had to write an art. Well, I didn't have to. Mississippi Folklife asked me to write an article for them um, in the summer of 2024, and I talked about this before about the mordant, about things that don't open themselves up, and how there needs to be something else in the middle, and how me as a tribal member and an academic, I feel like I'm that mordant. And I also said that in a Botanica piece that Rachel and Monique were in. So it's like it takes all of us to do our part. Like sometimes when the combination's not working, it's like it's missing something, is what I've started thinking. It's missing something. There's a piece that's missing in it. And I go out and I try to find that piece that's missing. The idea is that we're all part of this effort. All of us have to be a part of this effort to right our relationship with the natural world. We're always juggling, we're always balancing in this, keeping this, relationship going, and keeping our earth healthy and keeping ourselves healthy. It's just a constant thing. And we have cordage coming out of the garden as well. And this is blackberry and muscadine vine and honeysuckle vine. The leaves of yucca, we have that in the garden. Button snake roots in the garden. Iris is in the garden. Cattails, the inner bark of cedar, poplar, and elm can be used as cordage. So we're bringing back, I'm doing these workshops. I'm getting money from Mississippi Humanities to do workshops or bring people in who know this kind of stuff, and bring it back to our tribal people so that we can wake it up. Oops. This is a family. While I was doing the court, while I was having someone come in for the cordage workshop, I noticed I was reading in an archaeology journal about cordage that was found at Bayou Lacombe. And when I saw it, I went, oh my gosh, my tribal members already know how to do that. I thought cordage, our knowledge of cordage was gone. But what happened is these folks right here and other tribal members, they're using the cordage technique, the braiding technique, the plaiting technique that was used at one time for cordage. They're using it with larger pieces of fiber, palmetto, and then sewing the cords together to make baskets. But this is traditional cordage, ancient cordage techniques that they brought into the future, and it looks brought into the present, and it looks a different way. So here's a fan, and that's her grandmother right there who taught her the technique. So some of these things are around. They've just taken a different form, and we don't recognize them anymore. And the water's rising. We're in precarious times, and we human beings and our planet and our plant and our animal relatives and our planet. The seas are rising and the floods are affecting all of us. They're more frequent, they're more severe, they're more devastating, and the way forward is getting more difficult to discern. So we need these plants and we need these gardens. We need them to help us restore what's been taken from the land, like these trees, like Yopon holly. It only lives on the coast. If the coast goes under, Yopon holly goes under as well. We need them so that they can form a protective barrier between us and these storms. That's the problem we have right now. We've taken these protectors out of their place and moved them and gotten rid of them. And now we're in the line of sight. We're in the wind and the rain and the flooding areas. And we need their help to restore what's been taken from us, the connection that sustains us with the natural world, our food, our medicine, even our very breath comes from these ones right here. What happened? Oh, it's spinning. Let's see. So we applied for and received a Library of Congress grant because my tribal people are right there in the middle of what's being lost. And tribes don't survive being broken up and scattered to the 4 directions. There are tribes right now whose people are still around. Their genetics are still around. But the tribe, Bogalusa, not around anymore. Bayugula, not around anymore. And we are in that same situation right now, the United Homa Nation, because the water's rising and we're probably going to have to move. And what are we going to do? We're already scattering into the 4 directions. So we wrote a grant to the Library of Congress to interview and do documentation of our culture bears so that Homa kids, wherever they are, into and beyond the 7th generation, can be witness to, can learn from still these elders, which will be their ancestors years and years and years to come. And as part of that project, part of that documentation, I made banners for each of the culture bearers and gave it to them and gave one to the tribe and kept one for myself so that they can put their banner up and show out. Basically, they're proud of themselves. I mean, they love their banners. They're proud of themselves with that. These lessons are hard, but they're necessary. Supplejack teaches us something that we're doing right now. We need to remember that community is more important than most anything. Community one with another, one with the community within ourselves, community with the natural world. We have ceremonies that we need to bring back, like the green corn ceremony that makes sure that we're able to forgive one another. We're reminded with the green corn ceremony to let go of grievances that disrupt our relationships. We have Ikawa that reminds us to be there for one another in times of need. Ikawa means broken foot. Basically, it's everybody gather. Somebody gets hurt, harmed, can't do the work that they need to do. Let's gather up. Let's bring food. Let's help them with whatever they need. We have yaya ceremonies because sometimes the grieving is so huge and the losses are so big, like in COVID, that we think they're greater than we can bear. And yaya is a cry. It's time to get together, cry, let it out, and then get on with your life. We had ceremonies to help us with these things. We need to bring them back. The Women's Earth and Climate Action Network supports us in this effort. They have paid for, well, they've done a lot for the garden. They've done all kinds of things for the garden. But one thing they've done is that they've made these signs that let us write on these signs and introduce people to the plants and introduce people to the teachings and introduce people to like the lessons that I've learned in the garden. And they support my medicinal garden and also gardens across the Southeast. Other gardens like this one at the Los Islanos center, this little medicine wheel garden that was seeded by my mama medicine wheel garden. And this one is in Bayou Lacombe. We need these gardens. We need their beauty because it reminds us that there's beauty in the world. No matter what's going on, there will always be beauty in the world. There's always hope. And also, look at this. We need one another. We need one another. We can mourn our losses and get angry and get sad and then move into a place of beauty, plant seeds, grow our gardens, grow ourselves. It's always there, always available to us, because this world right here is dangerous and beautiful. We just need some perspective. We've come complete circle. We started talking about mounds and we're talking about mounds again. This one, Prospect gave us money. We wrote a grant. Prospect gave us money to build a mound in New Orleans with a group of folks called the Intertribal Collective. And the reason we built it is because we want to bring back our mound building culture, because these mounds, like our gardens, have a lot to teach us about sustaining community, about building community, about how to prepare the earth and then layer dirt and clay and different types of clay and use burning techniques to build a structure that will last thousands of years. It teaches us about how to stay in relationship with the natural world, how to respect the natural ebb and flow of water. I mean, you build a mound near water because you understand that water ebbs and flows. It goes down and it comes up, and you allow that, and you recognize that, and you respect that. The ebb and flow too of the night sky. So these were oriented in the directions, in the different directions, to respect the sky people too. And the ebb and flow of our emotions, the ebb and flow of our everything is ebb and flow. And this reminds me, at least, of that as well. I was thinking about all this when I was researching. I had to research wolfberry because I had to give a talk, and they wanted me to talk about wolfberry. And so I started looking up different things about wolfberry. It's a native plant that grows along the coast, only along the coast, like Yopunt, only along the coast. And I came across information about whooping cranes that migrate from Canada to the coast. And when they got there, they would eat, like, half their diet was this wolfberry, which is like our native form of goji berry, so super healthy. These cranes were almost hunted to extinction, mostly because of their feathers. But there was a group of about 40 of them up in Canada, and their lives had been so disrupted. This I can't even imagine. Their lives had been so disrupted that their elder population was devastated. And those who remained forgot their culture of migration. Like, I wouldn't have even thought that was possible, but we forgot parts of our culture too. And so they just hung out in Canada. I mean, the seasons would come and the seasons would go, and they would hang out in Canada. Well, some researchers, probably the descendant. Now think about this, like, this is a metaphor. Probably the descendants of the very people who hunted them almost to extinction in a previous generation. These researchers, dressed all in white, hung out with the whooping cranes so that the cranes sort of accepted them. Then they got into their aerolite planes. They'd bring the aerolite plane around, turn it on, turn it off. They got into the plane during migration season, went up into the sky, and the whooping cranes followed. And they migrated, the crane and the researchers in this aerolite plane, all the way down to South Texas. And when they got down to South Texas, they packed up their plane and they went back to where they were from. And the whooping cranes remembered their culture, and they flew back when they were supposed to fly back. Now, isn't that beautiful? So what I got from that is that, the researchers didn't become whooping cranes, and the whooping cranes didn't become researchers. And the researchers have the genetic material probably of the very people who harmed these whooping cranes. But they work together now in this day. They work together to receive and revive and remember some of their own culture. Their survivability is better now because of this interaction than it was before. And that's kind of a metaphor for what we're all doing and for what I'm doing. You know, I don't want to be the one who holds on to the dye, knowledge and the pigment knowledge and the cordage knowledge. I want for the tribal people to pick that up, and then I'll be doing something else, y'all. I got plenty to do. I'll be on to something else. As soon as they take it from me, they don't even have to tell me get away. I will be running away to the next thing because there's so much else that I can be doing with myself and so many other beautiful things to do. And so I think that's where we all are, and that's where we all can be. And sometimes I'm the intermediary in between people who are the researchers in the white suits and the aerolite plane and these tribal people who I'm part of as well. I want to let you know that we have we have a 20th birthday party for the Medicine Wheel Garden. She was born in 2005, and we're going to celebrate her birthday. She's 20 years old in 2025 on November 21st, and you are all welcome to come. And then the very next day, we have a powwow at Southern Miss. So you're welcome to come to that too. And I also want to let you know that I have a lot of help. I mean, I'm the face of it. I go out and give talks about it. I do probably all the banners as well, but I don't do everything. And I've got tons of help and tons of support. And I want to let you know who those entities are, and a bunch of people as well. So I thank you for having me.
Tammy, that's wonderful. Thank you for being here, for sharing your insight and your thoughts and your incredible spirit. Really, really appreciate it. I do want to let anyone who has comments or questions or reflections to step up. And we encourage you not to be shy, because this is not the place for that.
I have a question. On your garden, do you maintain and control it, or do you just let it grow and reseed itself as it wants to?
I do both of those things. There's a story. There's a native story about this guy called Yellow Tobacco Boy, and he wanted a wife, and so he went out and he made himself out of dirt. He made Dirt's girl. She was a mess, and her hair was dirt and wild, and she ate dirt, and she was disgusting. And I mean, couldn't take her anywhere really because she was just. So then he got tired of her, and he made a girl called Salt's Girl, and she was just perfect. I mean, she was white and beautiful and luscious, and her hair was perfect, and everything was perfect. And the question is, he got tired of her too. But so what do? There's a balance. So sometimes she seeds herself and gets crazy wild, and I let it happen. Like right now, she's out there with purple butterfly pea going wild. And the reason I let that happen is because that, fixes nitrogen in the soil. That's healthy. She's being healthy to herself. And then sometimes I go out there and wipe out things like, let's see, but she always looks wild. Like I go out there and there's too much cane. There's cane out there, swamp cane and a river cane. And I go and I take some of that out, and I go and I take wax myrtle because that just, grows everywhere too. And I go and I take, I do that too. So both. And just this year, after 20 years of tending this garden, physical plants started helping me. They never stepped foot in it before. They wouldn't even weed eat around the rocks. And this year they started offering help. So I took them up on it.
So, Tammy, I have a question. I mean, just along those lines of how do you care for something like this? I live up in the DC area. We have some land out in Maryland, and if I were to suggest that we create a garden like this, I think one of the first things I would hear is like, there's so many deer in the area, you'd never have any luck creating a garden. And what struck me is you were talking about the animals being a part of the garden, the hawks hunting, the rabbit. And I'm just kind of wondering what your response would be to that. How do you design this so that you're not trying to keep the deer out, you're actually trying to work with the deer? How would you respond to that,
Yeah.
or
So
any other animal? To really integrate it into nature.
yeah. So there are some plants that deer like and they love, and I would give them what they like and they love. It's like, okay, so here's the way the natives used to do it. So they would plant corn, bean, and squash, right? Or corn, bean, and pumpkin down here. And sometimes they would arrange that as the three sisters. And they would plant sunflowers all up in there because they didn't want the birds eating the corn. But the birds like the sunflowers. The sunflowers will give them their food easily. It's easy to get. So they gave the birds something so that they wouldn't eat the other stuff. And that's what I would do. I would give them what they like. I would give them something that they absolutely love. Like that is where they're going to stay because that's what they love. And then I'd plant my garden, the other stuff, and I'd be having in mind, I want this to be less liked by them. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I've heard a similar thing that the things that they like you put along the parameter, so
Yeah.
that they kind of get stopped there and they don't go in towards the
Yeah.
center.
Give
Yeah.
them what they love and then plant the other stuff.
Okay, thank you.
May I make a comment about animals?
Always.
I mean, I do living sculptures for ecological restoration for animals, and I think we often forget that the way nutrients on our planet are moved from one space to another are the animals. They're basically the blood of the planet. In the oceans, it's the whales that move the nutrients from the bottom to the top, but across the earth, the soil, it's the migrating animals that move the nutrients. And so that's one thing I'm always trying to do is find a way. And I live in the city, so that's really hard. Was kind of one of my questions is how in cities, when you want to do this, how do you implement animal impact? That's the hardest thing. The only way I've been able to figure it out so far is buying a bag of organic, like fish emulsion or I don't know, that to me is a real challenge.
So you're asking how to attract the animals in an environment where they don't normally, what are you asking? Tell me.
Making a comment of how another side of of a deer situation is I'd really invite it because I'm looking for ways to move nutrients across the planet.
Well, the birds will find what you have. There are birds out in that garden that act like they own the garden. They fuss at me, and I have to like look up at them and go, "Hey, I built this. You, you wouldn't have a space." I mean, I argue with them because they will literally fuss at me when I go out there, like I am intruding in their space. So they will come, and the birds will come. Birds will come. They're easy. They're easy.
Yeah, the birds are the easiest.
Yeah.
Birds and toads.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tammy, I had a question about Yupon holly. Um, I've become familiar with it since we moved here 10 years ago, like how there's a resurgence and people are trying to use Yupon because it's got caffeine and medicinal qualities. But then I've also heard couple people tell the story about its its scientific name, Ilex vomitoria, and how it got that. Are you familiar with that story of how it's called vomitoria and how that was kind of a colonization of that plant?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a misunderstanding. That's typical. I mean, think about that. The most sacred, ceremonial, everyday plant. It'd be like, calling, coffee something vomitoria because somebody was drinking way too much of it and threw up. They misunderstood that there was a culture, there was a ritual of throwing up, which would cleanse your inside. And so what they saw is somebody drinking the Yopon and throwing up. And so they assumed it was the Yopon making people throw up. And they named it accordingly. Although natives, we're always like conspiracy theorists. They think it was named that because they wanted people to buy the Chinese tea and they didn't want people to be using the natural product, like that it was a conspiracy against Yopon. Like, and also a friend of mine and I wrote to the places in England where they keep the botanical names of plants. They got people over there registering them and keeping them. And we wrote to them when we said, that's not an appropriate name for this plant because, when we told them why and we told them how it got that name. And they're like, yeah, we're not going to change it. So we tried to get it changed, but they wouldn't change it. Yeah. But people still say, I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day and I was telling them about something about drinking Yopon. And they're like, yeah, I hear that can make you vomit. You better be careful of that plant. So then I had to say, what we know about Yopon. So it's still out there because of that name.
So yeah, maybe it was intentional for marketing, yeah, or to market more tea and instead like imported tea. I mean,
Make buy
not
from
just
somebody.
I mean, even it makes me think. JD brought up a project that Ben and I worked on with indigo species, some native indigo species, but also what's called false indigo, which is not false at all, and the baptisia, which has the blue molecules in it too, but it's described as false when in fact it's native indigo. But it's the way, somehow the European one is called true indigo, even though it's not even European, it's from Asia or Africa, but is considered true indigo. And then the one in the Americas that indigenous folks have been using for, thousands of years is called false. But so we've renamed it wild indigo. And I don't know, hopefully that'll stick. Or at least we keep trying to propagate that term wild indigo for the baptisia.
Well, and medicines here, southeastern plants that are medicine, like senna. We have senna. We used to have it in the garden, but she walked off. But senna is senecot, the senecot, the medicine, the laxative. But the medicines down here, the plants down here have not been evaluated. And I look at it all the time, not nearly to the extent of other plants for their medicinal value. Like we will buy it from another country when we have it growing right here, something that, well, like tea, something that you can just go out in your yard and get if you live in the right place.
Any the dyes that you're they're just beautiful. I also enjoyed about the bush. Our bush is just exploding with the berries right now. Is I couldn't remember if you showed a dye from the bead there. I see the birds coming. Yeah, I'm watching now, but is bead used for dye work as well?
Brandon, did you understand what he said?
Charlie,
Could you,
yeah, it's a little disconnected. Like every other word is coming through, so it might be your connection.
maybe I'll try
I'm not sure.
that.
That might be easier,
Okay.
but we'll keep an eye out for that. Sorry, Charlie.
Maybe Charlie, if it's a question, maybe if you can, type it in the chat. Okay. I guess I had another question. You said wolfberries are like our goji berries? What's a wolfberry? What species is that? I'm not familiar with a wolfberry.
Yeah, I know. Let me see. We got somebody around growing them too. Down there in, let me see, species. It says wolfberry. I don't know. They grow on the island, you know, Isle de Jean Charles. They grow over there, but I'm sure they grow other places as well.
Mm.
They don't even give them to me like native wolfberry, Louisiana wolfberry.
Is that the purple flower one?
I'm trying to think. I only see it at Christmas.
Yeah,
got-
it's also called Christmas berry, right?
Christmas berry, yeah. It's got a it's got a red Lycium Carolinum, Lycium, Louisiana wolfberry. I'm trying to remember. Is it purple berry? I don't know. I go for the red because the red, it looks like a tomato. It looks like a tiny tomato on the vine. And it grows like a it's like kind of weedy, like, you know, like just kind of all over the place. It's like it just shoots up all over the place. And then it has a little tomato that pops out. And that is like a goji berry. Okay, somebody's got it. No, beautyberry bushes, that beautyberry you can what usually people do with it, like I just went and harvested a bunch of muscadines, and you can put beautyberries in, and the beautyberries are ripe too. So muscadines and beautyberries ripen at about the same time right here. And you can put them together and make jelly. But the beautyberries don't make beautiful. You would think they would. They're beautiful, but they don't make, if you smush it, it doesn't stain your finger. That's my test of what's a dye and what's a pigment. If you smush it and it stays some kind of color on your finger, it's probably going to color. And if not, not. And beautyberry does not. And muscadines don't either. They don't really make a beautiful color either.
I guess I had one other question. You brought up a story called the green corn story. Could you tell us more about the green corn story?
It was the green corn ceremony, and that's they call it busk. And it is, they used to hold that once a year around the time when the corn turned green. So like the corn was coming up, and you know, obviously we were going to have food that year. So like the corn comes up in this big green husk. And it was the most important ceremony. Yopon Holly figured prominently. Yopon Holly was the foundation of what they call the black drink, which was the drink that they would drink to purge themselves, to cleanse themselves and then they go bathe in the river to cleanse themselves. During the green corn ceremony, all the fires would be extinguished and then relit, sort of like this is the new year. Sometimes houses would be burned, like the mound houses would be burned down. And it was a cleansing thing that was going on. And also part of that ceremony was forgiving everything, my friends tell me, except murder. So you would, any slight, so you take my husband after the green corn ceremony, I got to let that go. It's like have him, you know, I've got to let things go because community is more important than me, you know, winning that fight. Community is more important than anything. And so during the green corn ceremony, you would renew. It was about renewing life, relationships, things like that. And then after the green corn ceremony, if I complained about this woman who took my husband, the elders their job was to come and say, you know, Tammy, we've been through the green corn ceremony. It's time to let that go. You see what I mean? It was like we had a process for, you know, Democrats and Republicans getting back together. We had a process that didn't let us carry these things forever and ever, because what carrying those harms does, and everybody harms people. We're human. We're going to make mistakes, and we're going to, you know, hurt people and hurt their feelings and do things that are wrong. But when you hold on to them, the community divides. The community suffers. The community doesn't make it. Look at us. The community can't withstand that. And so we had ways through green corn ceremony to make sure once a year we came back together as community. And through Iikawa, you know, when someone was hurt or couldn't do whatever it was needed done, we would come together as community. We had a lot of ways to come together as community, because that's what you have to do in order to get over hurts. You have to be, you know, come back together as community and reconnect, you know. Yeah, that's what it was about. We need it back.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. We definitely need more ceremonies and practices to help heal ourselves and our families and our friends and communities at this moment, now more than ever. Thank you.
You know, Brandon, I think that that reminds me of a conversation that we've had, because at your workshop, it seems like you've had a lot of questions about health and well-being and community, because funding might be slowing up for other resources, and they may be looking for more creative engagements, more community engagements. I wonder if you might feel comfortable saying a little bit more about that, or if other people are seeing the same pattern. I know that, you know, that's one of the aspects of the Gulf Research Program. It's one of the pillars that they're interested in is community health, but also community health and individual health. And I'm seeing this more and more and more and more throughout all the work that I do in collaborative spaces. So I wonder if you would mind speaking a little bit, and if anybody else has experiences that are similar, I'd love to hear about those as well.
What we've seen locally with our nonprofit is we've been approached by almost half a dozen different folks working in mental health, physical health, veterans, first responders that are coming to us and asking us about if we would be willing to do health-related programming, either for anything from nature bathing to you know, connection ceremonies to safe spaces. We're hosting now a writing group, which is very, very personal for the members. They come, and it's a very small group. We let them use the space, and they're working through all kinds of issues, from cancer, surviving cancer, to continued issues with segregation and but we're very happy to be opening to this community need, and I think it's just symptomatic of what we're seeing not only here in Louisiana but throughout the Gulf states, but all over the United States and the world, is people really are needing a place or finding ways to kind of heal themselves and hopefully try to support one another in that process.
Hey, Brandon, I want to ask something because I am from Belgium, and I would be very interested in learning the natural ways of Native Americans here. I think it's really interesting what I heard now, and I'm so happy because, like, I I do not find homeopaths here in the South or natural doctors. It's really a problem. I'm from Belgium, and I worked with homeopaths, holistic therapists, and there's just nothing like it here. I don't know if anybody else is interested in in that at all.
Well, locally, like where we're at in Acadiana, there's a tradition of the traiteur, which are folks that learned from the indigenous communities plants, but then they also brought their indigenous knowledge from Africa. So it's a Creole and Cajun tradition, and it's also connected with the plants, but also prayer and faith healing. So local, I mean, we've worked with traiteurs to give programming quite a bit at our nonprofit, but I'm sure wherever people are at in their parts of the Gulf South, there must be other groups to connect with like that.
Where are you?
I am in Alabama, the South Orange Beach, Gulf Shores area.
I'll ask. I have friends in Alabama that are plant people that make medicine, and I have friends in New Orleans, and they may know somebody. I'll let Brandon know if I run across somebody.
Thank you.
Likewise, I'll put in the chat the website for a local Lafayette-based traiteur, and she might know folks too. Her name is Becca Begno. And it's unusual that traiteurs identify publicly as traiteurs. They usually don't use that word. But in her case, she learned from her great spirit, like who she prays to, that was okay. That the person that she prays to said it was important for her to identify and let people know this was part of her path. So I'm allowed to say that. In other words, because she said I'm allowed to say it, but I'll put her website in the chat for you.
I know because I'm kind of a, outside of the Gulf, co-organizing these salons. I do have a resource, a garden that we just recently came across here in Maryland. It's been here for a while, but I just discovered it is called the Green Pharmacy Garden. Pharmacy spelled F-A-R-M, and it's supposedly has like one of the highest collections in this area of pharmaceutical plants. I'm just going to put this in. It's associated with one of the universities here, but I think they do good work, and they have really good intentions about how they go about the garden, and just always kind of interesting to have another resource. I also, since we're on this idea of health, I think many of you were in Tampa, and many of you were introduced to performing artist Fred Johnson, who sang a summary of our discussions for us at noon. Well, we've continued the conversation, and I'm working with him and a physician to create a sort of an ongoing workshop called The Beating Heart, the Science and Mysticism of Health. And of course, his traditions come from West African traditions, which I think still have, a great value and perspective in how we think about our health. But I put that link. It's an online free workshop. You just have to register. So I wanted to share that as well. So I'm not trying to stop the conversation or intentionally direct it in a different way, but I do want to make sure that we have time for people who have never been in the salon to share who they are, or people who have been here who just want to say hi and let us know about other things. Charlie, I think this is your first one, but I'm not sure that you have your audio.
Let me see. Is this better? I put in the headphones.
Yes,
Is that a little
yes,
bit okay? Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Sorry
Charlie,
about that earlier. Sorry about that.
can
Yes.
you hear a little bit about your work and where you're coming from in
Sure.
Florida?
Sure. Yeah, I am a writer and architect, and I teach at University of Florida in the School of Architecture. And some of the things that I teach there are design build, which is where we design and construct small projects with students. Some of the recent projects we've done are in Cedar Key, which is kind of north central west coast Florida. We did a yoga platform last year. A couple years ago, we did a community gathering space in North Port St. Joe, a little bit around what we call the Big Bend, and then up into the Panhandle. With students, we built a porch project for a community, hoping that it would serve as a seed for affordable housing. So the idea that the students came up with was a front porch and a back porch combined, and then using that as a more than a placeholder, but as a first step towards trying to work on infill housing in the community. A couple of the other projects I'm working on currently is a book on fish camps here in Florida, looking at the interaction between camps and not just fish, but climate change, the environment, the traditions around fish camps, taking it back as far as we can through indigenous communities to the present, and really trying to understand what they tell us about our relationship to place and to nature, particularly in the contemporary moment we are. Another project I'm working on is I should say rehabilitation of our fish cabin that was has been damaged past few years by hurricanes, but in particular by Hurricane Helene. And as an architect, I'm trying to use it as a case study to understand how better to create structures that respond to storm surge, sea level rise, and the plant and animal communities in the saltwater marshes where the cabin, it was built in 1950. We wouldn't build a project now, but we kind of feel like custodians of the place, and really just trying to figure out how to not completely rebuild it, but to create it so that it works better with the place. And as we go, trying to see how much we learn about the place as we rebuild. One of the things is you would hear like FEMA talk about it as wet proofing, because we're not going to raise our structure. So you'd hear FEMA talk about it as something like wet proofing, which is said not to be appropriate for living spaces, but we're trying to figure out in the short term how to make it a possibility. So the idea of things getting wet, assuming they're going to get wet, and then allowing them to dry out, and how can the architecture and the landscape support that? Anyway, things like that are a couple of the projects that I'm working on in addition to teaching, and just excited to be here. I appreciate the invitation, and Tammy, I loved your presentation. It was just a beautiful. So taking all kinds of notes and just thinking of a lot. So thank you.
Charlie was introduced to us by Sherry Forrest, who's with our Gulf Research Program and one of our main partners in crime. And Charlie, I just put your website in the chat so people can
thank you.
Follow that
Great.
in
Thank you.
as well.
Thank you.
And I second your comment about Tammy's wonderful, thought-provoking presentation. I'm still got too many questions in my head to even ask or to bring out. So, would anybody else like to share your hopes, your dreams, your aspirations, or anything else that's on your mind? Sasha?
Hello. Sorry, I had my camera off. I was eating lunch. I hope everybody's doing well. I'm Sasha, for anybody that doesn't know me. I am the Education Outreach Manager working on some deep coral restoration out in the Gulf from the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. So that's how I met Brandon and these other folks through working on that project and working on an art installation down here in Galveston of Brandon's. And we've been working on this coral restoration out at sea since about 2021. It's all funded by the BP oil spill lawsuit settlement. So it's all funds being put to work from that. And we actually have some live streams coming up that I wanted to share with everyone. Starting next Tuesday, we'll be doing live streams through September and October, direct from our expeditions in the Gulf with our scientists and techs on board, to be able to engage with anybody who wants to. Oh, thanks, JD. Anybody who wants to tune in. It's all free on YouTube, and then the recordings of those should be available right after at the same link. So it's great if you are a community educator, or just somebody that wants to watch from home and chime in and learn. And my husband's an aquatic science high school teacher, so he will have one class watch in real time, and then the next day, all the other class periods can watch the recording, and they seem to not even care that it's not live. They just think it's really cool to see science in real world applications. So if you want to know kind of what those programs look like, I'm also going to share a little, we have a whole playlist on YouTube. And in the description of the videos, they all have the website links to our website that has free educational resources as well. So I'll leave a little video link here if you want to watch a little 2-minute kind of preview highlights of last year's live streams. And I'll also put my email address here in the chat in case anybody has questions or wants to reach out, or has educators that would like to connect with me. So nice to see all y'all today. And that was a great presentation, Tammy. Super fascinating to hear. I have a friend that uses natural dye on repurposed clothing here and does block printing. And so it's beautiful. And I have a couple of her pieces that I just love. And I started a Native Plant Society chapter here in Galveston, where our city doesn't really understand that native plants are a gift and not a burden. And so I've been working with the city and with folks here to really try to change the perspective of folks here that native plants are a gift, and we should foster them and respect them and care for them instead of paying for expensive non-native plants to beautify our communities. So great presentation. Thanks for.
Sasha, I remember meeting you the first time down in Galveston during our meeting this past February, and I just remember how passionate and sort of clearly spoken you were, in such a way that you just, it's like, well, duh, of course we don't hate Native American or native plants, or whatever. It's just, there's just this sort of practical kindness about the way that you approach things that I still remember, and I'm hearing it again when I hear you speak now. So thank you.
Thank you. It's harder to keep that when I'm talking to very privileged folks in our city council who want the solution to be spend a bunch of money on landscapers. And I'm like, we can't afford landscapers here. These plants are free. And if people know how to identify them, they can grow their own gardens for free. And that's part of it too. Beautification in places where we can't spend hundreds and thousands of dollars on plants, and we shouldn't have to.
That's exactly, you're the personification of practical kindness.
Thank you. That's really lovely.
Yeah, that's good. That's
I get good practice hosting the live streams and being a musician. Just get good practice just being like on, which is helpful.
Yeah. What is the one, Tim Rollins is a contemporary artist. He passed away a few years ago, would always say, too much common sense is boring, but a little sure it's helpful. So it's very common sense and sort of practical applications. So.
Great. Anybody else that would like to chime in? Cindy? Have you joined us in the past, Cindy? Forgive me if I.
Well, I was in Galveston.
Yeah.
I got to go see the coral reefs, and I still remember that. And I'm just trying to remember, is it the moon? They breed by the moon, and it's like so amazing. Or is it? I can't remember exactly what it was, but I was so amazed. Like they're in a building, but they
Yeah.
the sense of what moons are there, which is, was it breeding? Do I have
They
that right?
spawn during the full moon.
Okay, I knew that. I had
corals.
something wrong.
Yeah.
Funny.
Even in the lab, they've spawned the last couple of years the same time as they do in the wild, which fascinates me because these are species that are in very, very low light habitats. So it's like not even light dependent. It's
Like-
beyond that, which is really fat. And we're still learning about why and how, but it's really, really cool.
Like,
Yeah.
what do they know that we don't know? You know, it's such
Secrets. Yeah.
well, I committed my art practice a number of years ago at the pretty much the influence of a soil scientist from Zimbabwe that started doing regenerative agriculture. You can find his YouTube, Alan Savory. I think it's the 2014 YouTube that pretty much changed my life. And most of the people that I know in what I call the carbon world, we talk about the moment we saw Alan Savory's TED Talk and how that changed our life. So I use regenerative agriculture principles and systems theory to reimagine urban landscapes. I started doing this in urban landscapes because I was backing up a little bit more. My interest in kind of the environment came in my interest in where healthy food came from because my husband, before he was 40, became type 2 diabetic. And we went and did everything the hospitals and the nutritionists told us to do and found out basically they were turning into an annuity for insulin. And so we started doing our own research and like, what is healthy food? My two kids were allergic to almost all the foods like that. It was just this kind of a food nightmare for me as a parent and the food provider in my household. So when they went away, I started going to, and I became interested in regenerative agriculture. I really have to like understand what people are doing and kind of seeing it for myself. And I started to going to meetings with farmers and ranchers to see how they were learning to transition from industrial food production to producing a food in a way that regenerates the planet. It helps keep animal impact under control, but also helps support animal impact and build back biodiversity. And what I soon came to find out was that no matter how badly they want to transition, because we subsidize them to fail, they can't. And until there's that demand for the organic regenerative product, they really can't. But I also have a background in commercial real estate where I did site selection for retailers. And I know that if you have a new concept and you want it to grow and expand, you start it in a really dense population center. And I'm in Houston, Texas, a really dense population center where it's semi-tropical. So it's one of the best areas for biodiversity. But they'll tell you that most cities that are tropical or semi-tropical are poor and don't have the means to make these transitions in their landscapes. So I started just looking at the value and the potential here in Houston, which might seem like an oxymoron because it's the energy city and it has a bad reputation from that. But from the geography and all these other things, it has this huge potential. So I started doing urban landscape transitions in art venues like the Lawndale Art Center, and basically just took things that I learned from going to these talks and watching YouTubes and talking to farmers and ranchers and applying that to urban landscapes. So my first project was at the Lawndale Art Center. I did a traditional 15,000 square foot garden. And in 3 years over their door, there were 200 chrysalis. And I couldn't count the butterflies. The things happen so quickly when you get out of the way. What was super interesting for me regarding architecture is I accidentally bought a hybrid passion vine and nothing ate it until the other vines were gone. But when they did, the color on the hybrid was a dark purple, which normally it's a light purple. And the caterpillar for the passion vine is more of a deep orange. But when that vine changed color of the other vine, so did the color of the caterpillar, like on the color wheel. and they started going to this building that was pink. So I'm like wondering, when we start trying like the things that we can do in architecture that can help with biodiversity is really fascinating for me. So I'm kind of just, I'm researching and finding out what I can find about plants and what they do to the ecosystem. Like there's a lot of new information, like taking lead out of the environment and arsenic. And I'm really just trying to learn from the plants. And there's so much new technology around that's been really helpful. So I'm really excited about the potential and changing society. I have a lot of projects going on, but that's kind of explains what I do and how I think. I don't know, I hope that's helpful.
Thank you. Nina, have you joined us before online for one of our sessions? You were in Galveston. We met you in Galveston. Have you haven't joined online before, have you?
Yeah, I have. It's
Oh,
been a
you
while.
did. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah,
Do
it's
you
been
want
some
to?
time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody
But
else you want to say anything about? Introduce yourself.
sure. Well, I am an artist that focuses on endangered species, not just on the local basis, but worldwide, local, as well as local endangered species. And I do that via live streaming on Twitch and spreading some fun facts about them and creating some fact sheets on a monthly basis about a highlighted animal where we go a bit more into depth. And I started a blog where I talk a little bit more about them as well. And I hope to get the community to understand that that frog in your backyard might actually need your help instead of just being tossed on the street. And also try to tell people that just the smallest little bit of change in your lifestyle and mindset might actually make a huge difference in saving an animal or a plant. Like planting some milkweed in your backyard might help the monarch butterfly to survive for a few more years, right? Or just reducing your plastic waste and such things. So good mindsets and such things. And yeah, that's me.
Thank you. Anyone else? JD, do you want to talk about your book?
I actually thank you, Brandon. I just put a link in the chat. I went to undergraduate in East Texas, and so I thought it was appropriate for this group for me to put a little write-up that they did as an alum, which is kind of cute and funny and everything, because it seems like such a long time ago. The school wasn't even called East Texas A&M. It was called East Texas State and Commerce. And Texas A&M came, and all of a sudden I was an Aggie, and I didn't know it. But one of the great contributions to this book is by Brandon and Aurora Ballinger, who talks about, I think it's the first time that you've actually published on the Atelier, the center, the workshop, the nature workshop. And I think it was also, if I'm not getting this wrong, Aurora's first publication. So I feel like that was kind of a double treat for me. There's also, those of you who were in Tampa, remember that we had a video of Mel Chin. And I worked with Mel's studio, and we did a slightly modified transcript of his message as sort of an epilogue at the beginning of the book. So it does have a lot of sort of, things that overlap with what we're talking about, but in sort of a broader sense, it's about the integrative practice, sort of this ecosystem of the different motivations that exist institutionally, personally, and across different types of communities, of why people come to this sort of integrative practice, how they have different goals, and how that having empathy for those different goals can affect it, and understanding that those different goals can actually help us work better together. So it's an anthology, about 33 different contributors. So it's quite lovely. A lot of papers came in on health and wellness in that space. And so we're pretty excited about that. And I will just say, if you it's published by Routledge, and I was talking before we started that the model for academic books is to charge an astronomical amount of money when they first come out in hardbound. And if we do manage to sell enough to libraries, they will come out with another softbound copy, softback book, I think is what grown-up people call it. And it'll be considerably cheaper. So at this point, if you can get your libraries to buy one, it'll encourage them to produce it later on. But I know a lot of, it's I say that, it's my book. Brandon referred to it as my book, but it's actually our book. There's a lot of people in our community who contributed. Some really wonderful people, and Brandon. So, thank you. Who else has something else that they would like to say? We've got just a couple more minutes.
I'll jump in and give a pitch for those of you that haven't yet been invited to come join us in Louisiana for the Halloween Art and Nature Festival we're putting together this year. The theme is Enchanted Forest. So I think about half the remaining folks on the call are planning on being here anyway, so that's perfect. And if you're not, I know, Tammy, you can't come. You've got a conflict, but hopefully someday. The other thing is, if you can't come in person, we make an activity book, which we give away. We print and give away. We make about 1,000 of those, and then we also make a PDF. So that's something. There's an ask if you're interested in putting a page in for an activity book for kids of all ages, 0 through at least 110. Let us know. I'll send you the specs. It's black and white. We print it ourselves and distribute them here the day of, and then at schools afterwards. So the date this year is Saturday, October 25th, and super excited that several of you all are going to be there. And if you're not going to be there in person, we'd love it if you contribute a page to the activity book.
Well, Brandon, I wonder if, and I'm asking for volunteers who could help me brainstorm this, but what if the Gulf Creative Network were to come up with something for the page, some sort of activity where we can actually draw attention to these conversations?
I love that idea, certainly.
Okay.
Are you taking the lead on that? Is that what you're saying, JD?
Well, I'm going to support Benjamin Dumansky in this because I can tell by the expression on his face. Oh, there he is. There he is. Oh, whoa. Yes, I will take lead on it, and I would appreciate any support, especially from Benjamin Dumansky, because he's so much fun to work with. So, all right. Everybody, I'm going to officially stop the recording, but you feel free to stay on and chat. I'll leave it open for a little while longer. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Tammy. It's such a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Tammy. It was really great. Thanks so much.